Welcome to this edition of the Talk of Simsbury. My name is Dominique Avery. For the past 6 or 7 months, I've been hearing a new buzzword in Simsbury: innovation. I first became aware of it last October from a marketing consultant's economic development report, which found that Simsbury was ideally suited to excel in the digital innovation economy and should focus on its role at the intersection of innovation and nature. Around the same time, I heard that the Simsbury Public Library and its new director, Lisa Karim, was forming a group to focus on innovation, to create and sustain an environment in town conducive to innovation. And then I heard that the Simsbury Historical Society, on its own, was planning a whole new set of exhibits focusing on Simsbury's long and storied history of innovation. Well, today we're going to concentrate on what's happening at the library and the Historical Society. To help us cut to the chase, I have 3 guests: Marianne O'Neill, Chair of the Library Board; Dave Blumey, a member of the Library Board; and Joe Buda, a member of the Historical Society. Marianne, let me start with you. The library is historically known as a place for books. How has it now become suddenly this center of innovation? How did that come about?
Well, thank you again, Dominique, for having us here. I'd like to start with the first sentence of our vision statement for the library. Is the Simsbury Public Library should be the first stop for any needed information for the community of Simsbury. And certainly for the past hundreds of years, most of that information resided in books. But with the advent of the internet and the digital age, that access to information has proliferated across untold number of media and outlets that are there. And we see us as the provider of that information, and to be able to get the access in the form that people can need. Prior to even books, though, we've got to remember, and going back to when you're a child, the first way people learn and get information is from others. It's from collaborating, from getting new ideas, and using that to leverage your own abilities in your own ideas. So basically, I'd just like to read a little bit. Our vision is the overarching purpose of the library is to simplify the complexity of modern life and support residents of all ages to make smoother transitions in our ever-changing world. Both in its physical and electronic form, the library provides an environment conducive to thinking and learning. And certainly, that's the basis for any type of innovation. We see this as an ability for generations to interact with each other, from an older generation to learn from that new technology generation, and vice versa.
So historically, books, I guess, were an innovation when they were formed in the first place.
They were the Gutenberg Press.
Exactly.
But it's just one step in a progression along the way. I don't see books going away.
No, thank you. I'm glad too. I just heard in Australia that there's an uproar because they're eliminating all books at their major libraries. So Dave, take me a little bit further, this idea of making innovation important at the library, and what are you doing?
Well, back in 2013, with our new director, Lisa Karim, the library board decided on this direction, and there's a number of things we needed to do, the first of which was to hear from the public. So we held a series of meetings to hear from what the residents of Simsbury and the Farmington Valley, what they wanted, what they might want to have. And we got a very strong endorsement from adults, from teenagers. So next step was we had to find money because there was no funding in our budget to be able to do this. We've been very fortunate, and we've been able to now have the money that we need to be able to buy some equipment and to fund some programs, all of which together we're calling the Innovators Workshop. So let me first talk about the place. The place will be a 3D printing lab, and it'll have all the equipment to be able to print out. And what I mean by 3D printing is a computer-driven device that lays down layers in a 3-dimensional form of plastic or metal, can be exotic as food or human tissue. The library is not doing those latter ones. We're doing plastic. Thank you.
Okay.
So So now that we have we now have the money for the equipment, we're in the process of acquiring the equipment, and we're going to have a grand opening on April 26th, where the entire community and the public are invited to join us to see what this new equipment is. And that day will be not just the equipment, but it'll also be from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock. It's going to be a whole series of hands-on programs for children, for teens, for adults. So the Innovators Workshop is, number one, it's a physical place. We're the 3D printing lab. But the second part of that is it's also a series of programs. All ages. So we have children's programs on how to cook, how to do a variety of, how to make parachutes. They don't use them actually, but they make them. We have adult programs. So for example, some of our programs are going to be how to use a 3D printer. We're also going to focus on what are the ethics of 3D printing, because as you may have heard a number of months ago, there was quite a hubbub about someone printing in plastic a gun.
Right.
Well, they then passed some regulations that there had to be metal in there and that sort of thing. But it has other broader ethical implications. Copyright laws.
Right.
We think that that there's risk of copyright today with printed material. We move to devices, 3D type of devices. Well, if I can scan whatever you've invented or you've created, I can then duplicate that. So we have a lot of issues.
Can I go back one step?
Sure.
I mean, so you had this sort of group of people who wanted to talk about innovation at the library.
Right.
How did you make the jump from innovation at the library to a 3D printer?
Well, Dominic, we in many ways we borrowed from some other libraries.
Okay.
There are probably 15 to 20 libraries across the country who are ahead of us in this regard. So we looked around to see what other libraries were doing, and we knew that we wanted to do programs that were not just technologically oriented, but they were also artistic. So it covered both the technology and the artist side. And we saw in a number of these libraries that they had used a 3D printer as sort of the jumping off point to be able to get people involved. And when I say people, one of the attractions of this is that this 3D printing lab and other libraries have attracted populations and demographics that don't ordinarily come to the library. So for example, early teens. Kids come to the library when they're in high school and they've got to do papers. But when they're 10, 11, 12, 13, what does the library have to offer? Well, with the 3D printer and all the programs we'll have there, we'll have a lot to offer to those early teens. To men, the missing population in libraries is men.
Absolutely. My husband, he absolutely refuses to come.
So this hopefully will attract demographics and populations that don't normally come to the library. But it is really, as I say, the jumping off point for how to do things, how to make things, how to do things with our hands that become very important in today's society. As we've moved away from a manufacturing society and an agricultural society, we have fewer and fewer people who know how things work. So we're going to have programs. For example, we're going to take some keyboards and we're going to take them apart to look at how they work. And in some cases for kids, just to learn how to do things with their hands. So the 3D printer is just one piece of this whole Innovators Workshop. As I said, it's both a physical place and a whole series of programs that we're going to do.
Can I ask you, speaking of physical places, where is this 3D printer going to be in the library? Do you know already?
Initially, it's going to be in the area that today is sort of the teen area. We're going to use a part of that area to have the 3D printer. It's in a sort of an alcove that can be closed down when no one's there to be able to provide supervision, but it's got sufficient space to be able to do it. Doesn't take a whole lot of space. It's about the size of a printer, a regular copy printer, and it has a computer that goes with it. So it does need some supervision, but it's really not a large physical device.
So you are actually now, you're looking for volunteers, right?
We very much are. The first part is we're going to have this event on April 26th that is going to be activities and things taking place throughout the library for the entire day. Well, we need volunteers to be able to help with that. Everything from guides to just simple things. So you don't have to have any great knowledge, any knowledge at all. We'll come and we'll show you what to do. So we need volunteers there. But on an ongoing basis, we're going to have this 3D print lab open throughout the day and the evening, and we need an adult to be there to be able to provide supervision for that. And so we would train people on what they would need to know, but it's a great opportunity to get involved, to be able to learn something new, and to interact with kids, teenagers, and adults.
Now, if somebody hears this and says, I'm a guy who is interested in 3D printing, I might like to train, who should they contact?
Well, certainly me, but also probably the easiest one is at the library.
Okay.
Our director is Lisa Kareem.
Okay.
But anyone there at the library, if you walked in and said, I would like to volunteer on this program. We have posters up at the library today which give people exact, who to talk to and email addresses and telephone numbers. So you can do it at the library or you can send an email or call.
So now I'm going to move on. Joe has been sitting here patiently. I think it's so interesting that the Historical Society on its own is also dealing with this concept of innovation. And I also think it's interesting that Simsbury has been such a center of innovation with, I just learned recently, the coin telephone was invented in Terrafil.
Correct.
And you have the Bickford safety fuse. And then you have Gifford Pinchot, who was the father of conservation. I mean, we have spawned a lot of innovators. So tell me a little bit, Joe, what the Historical Society is doing. You have an amazing facility there, but I get the feeling that there's hasn't been enough use made of it.
And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at optimally using all the space within the Simsbury historical property. And that not just the Phelps Tavern and other areas, but looking at the other peripheral buildings. One of those being the what we call the White Barn, which is the Phelps Barn, a barn that was built in the late 1800s, and that was used for a number of years now, really for storage. We get wonderful things, of course, from Simsbury residents that are really from Simsbury and that are put in storage oftentimes. You can't display everything, so we put it in storage. And the White Barn became the storage container, as it were, for many of these wonderful things. Well, back in October, we analyzed that and said, how can we better optimize that space? And knowing that we wanted to focus in on innovation as one of our key focus areas, that was a target area. Another target area was what we call the 7 bays. If you remember seeing the property, there's 7 garage doors, as it were, along the side of the property that houses now a collection that was given to us, very few local items, but some that was a collection that was given to us back, I think, in the 70s, of sleighs and wagons that are in there. And it's a rather static display, what I call. So we looked at those two areas and say, how can we better utilize our space along with a very interactive approach towards exhibits and workspace? So I'll first talk perhaps about the White Barn. So what we took on during the cold, it's an unheated building. So what's called a barn team took on looking at what's in the barn, first of all, sorting what was in there, moving it into other locations such as the upper level of the barn, cleaning and organizing the whole lower level, and looking at exhibit space and workspace, which is now being set up for 3 different areas and very much aligned to innovation. The first thing we worked on was cleaning an area out and putting in a fully functional woodworking shop with traditional woodworking tools from the 1800s era. So it was really before the American Industrial Revolution, where the artisans worked. So we created that area. But we're looking to use that, not the intent wasn't to reproduce Windsor chairs or anything like that, but was really looking at innovative approaches to woodworking, but totally by hand. And there's many artisans that are artists and artisans that are out there. I'm a woodcarver myself, and that that could do work but do innovative work. So that workshop is fully complete now, functioning. We actually have some projects going on right now, and we're planning to build a Simsbury Guild of Artisans, have a group of people available that would work in this environment, be members of the Simsbury Historical Society, but could do actual physical hands-on work, perhaps even ones that we could make and then have donated to the Historical Society, sold through our store perhaps, other major community projects we could do.
More synergy.
More
making
synergy,
things right.
and as well as workshops
Right.
as we go along. Another section is innovation in pedal power, which focuses, it's being built right now, and that focuses on the evolution and the innovations of the bicycle. This town and community is so linked wonderfully to nature, that innovation, that intersection of innovation and nature. So we're really looking at that section right there, that intersection, and looking at then how can we build an exhibit, an interactive exhibit, one that also gives the past, present, and future of the bicycle, of how it started, but not just what enabled it to occur. And that's an important part of innovation, is that the technology, the materials are available that make an invention possible, like Thomas Edison's light bulb, the Henry Ford's automobile assembly line. A lot of things enable that to occur.
So this is going to be an exhibit.
This
what is going to be in that exhibit? I know you're asking
Right.
for photographs of people
Great.
with bicycles.
Right, that's one
right.
of the areas. What we're looking at is really the exhibit will include the evolution of the wheel, for an example. So we have how materials were moved on the pyramids actually by using logs, then moving to a stone wheel, then a wooden wheel, then a spoked metal wheel that was used on farm equipment, then something that looks much more like it would go on a bicycle.
So are these photographs or these?
No, these are actual items. They're
okay.
already built. They're already in. We're using a horse stall to do this. One of the stalls, they have this in. So we show the evolution of that. We're going to show the evolution of the fork of the bike, how the fork was used early on, and then how did that evolve. The metals that were used on the bike will be displayed, of the different materials and how it improved. But why was it improved? Was it for safety reasons? Was it for the weight for racing bikes? Was it used for the durability, the road it was going to be used on? What were these factors? So we really look at the factors of innovation. We have some wonderful bikes that were right here from Simsbury, that were owned by a family in Simsbury, that we have on display. And then we move into other bikes, historically looking at the 3-speed, the coaster, brake type bike, the ones that we used to ride a lot of these, the 10-speed that came out so popular in the 60s and 70s. We look at those bikes. Then we have a separate stall that's dealing with present and future bikes. And we're really working closely with the Simsbury Free Bikes in that area, the bike seller, and others. Steve Mitchell was over just the other day. He was helping us film, actually, with Dave, a segment in our barn. And that to look at all of the synergies that we have around bicycles, and then integrating that into the exhibit there.
So I think this is really interesting, and I think the Historical Society in general has been an underused. It's this amazing collection of old buildings
Right.
on a special property, almost like Sturbridge Village.
It really is.
And yet it's not used enough. And I'm so excited that you have this new energy going on.
Oh, thank you. And we have a lot of energy. The teams are really developing quickly around the different sections. The 7 bays, we're looking to move that right into the areas of the who were the innovators. The Hall of Fame, as it were, will be built with exhibits. So we're looking for volunteers for that area to help us support those, to do research, as well as help us build those displays throughout the summer. And the ones in the barn, we have another section on pedal power, what we call the pedal pitch area. That the backdrop's a peddler's wagon from the 1800s that was used right here in Simsbury and locally. And that'll be it for sales and marketing of innovation. So it's almost like a little Shark Tank type setting that we're looking to use. But
The
for
TV show Shark
the TV
Tank,
Shark
right.
Tank, that what we could have is a much more friendlier one. That's the pedal pitch is for innovators to actually pitch their sales and marketing pitch to potential customers and possibly potential investors in their products right there in the White Barn also.
So we know that the library is doing something on April 26th. Do you guys have a date of something that you're looking at?
Right, we are. We're looking to complete at the weekend of May 17th and 18th. We thought we'd align towards events that are occurring. One event is the Fabric of Time. That is going to be on the May 17th. And then on the May 18th is triathlon.
That's on quilting, right?
And that's on quilting and work in fabrics. That'll be there. So we're looking at integrating that into the Saturday. Also building upon the triathlon that's that Sunday. They have the exhibits open, interactive, and invite people to bring their classic bikes or their most modern bikes, their most innovative bikes there, and have them also on the green on Sunday. So to get the community involvement also.
Now the Historical Society, I think we're beginning to run out of time, but the Historical Society is open very few days a week.
At this time, it's open on Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, basically. The White Barn exhibit, we're looking at getting it open much more at any time we can. We're actually looking at designing the 7 bays, for example, that it could be open 24/7. With the optimal use of technology, we're looking at putting in systems. We're doing a lot of work right now in research on this topic that someone could actually push a button and there'll be a sensor that'll give presentations by being outside looking in on these 7 bays on the Hall of Fame. So it could be any time, but also the White Barn being open at other hours. Because you're going to have a guild in there, woodworkers and others, that when they're there, we're going to open the doors.
Right.
So that's the logic of really expanding the time that it's going to be open.
And I would put in a plea for longer hours for the shop.
That's a good point.
Because people, when they come, they want to buy something.
It's good, very good point.
Right.
That's a very good point.
And I travel a lot, and I always want to bring something from Simsbury,
Right.
and it's very hard to find a time when it's open.
That's a good point. I'll take that back to the group. I will.
And I'll put in another plea from the Tourism Committee. We have wanted a visitor center forever.
Oh, right.
And
right.
I wish you would put that in your plans and think about it, because when visitors come to town, there is no central place for them to go to. So I think
That's
the
a
Historical
very good
Society
point.
would be really good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes left, a little less than 5 minutes. I want to give you a chance, Dave, to sum up what people should take away from this show, what they should remember about April 26th. What do you want them to remember and take away?
That day, April 26th, is really the coming out of this Innovators Workshop. It will be a ribbon cutting at 10 o'clock in the morning with a lot of things. And there's activities throughout the day for all ages, for children, for teens, and for adults. And that day we will be announcing a community innovation project. We're still working on this one, so we're not announcing what it is yet, but by that time will be fleshed out and we'll be announcing what it is. And it'll be an ongoing project that the community can participate in. So there's a lot to take place that day. Come and join us. Come and be a participant, but if you can be a volunteer.
Okay, and they should go to the library, should contact the library or call the library or look on their website to volunteer.
The library website, there's an opportunity right there on the website, shows you how to volunteer or physically at the library.
And the library's not going to stop using books, Mary Ann.
And just to reinforce, the Innovators Workshop is not just high tech.
No.
There'll be a lot of hands-on for all generations.
I've seen they're asking for, if you're passionate about cooking, come to a cooking demonstration.
Exactly. It's anything like that where you're sharing ideas
Right.
and leveraging and innovating from that point.
Boy, you summed that up very quickly, Joe.
We can add more.
I think we might need a little more. Joe, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about the Fabric of Time with
Right.
Ed Janetta Miller, who is a famous quilter. And
Right, absolutely.
That's on the 17th at...
That's on the 17th, and I think that's going to be an exciting day. There'll be flyers going out and publicity occurring on that day. Again, many different activities at different levels. historical displays, of course, on some of the items that we have right in the Historical Society, but a lot of interaction with demonstrations occurring. So I think the topic is very, very interesting. So I think that's going to be a wonderful day. Again, we'll have the White Barn open for the exhibits there also. So it's really made to enable people to stroll in and out and view, enjoy the day there. And also on the day of the triathlon, stop over with the focus on pedal power and the exhibits that day too, the following Sunday.
No, I mentioned to you that Simsbury has this history of innovation.
Right.
Do any of you have an idea of why that is? Why are we innovators? Why has the town been innovators? And why should we be focusing on innovation and now?
Well, I told this story one time to someone, I forgot who I was talking to, that said when Albert Einstein used to get his ideas, he used to walk in the Alps, the Swiss Alps, and he used to take these wonderful long walks with his friends and have a time to get ideas. And I think our environment is very similar to that. We have this beautiful natural setting of the river, the hills, the trails that we could use. We have a wonderful community in town that, to me, really creates a very positive environment for innovation to occur.
For thinking.
For thinking,
Yep.
reflecting, really.
And that's true today too. One of the things we've found as we've held these public meetings is people show up at our meetings and they are inventors, they are artists, they are small business people in this community who basically are making things. And we need to find a way to provide them a place to come together. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with the library project.
And we're looking at the artisan side, the artists and artisans in town. They have a spot where they could display their work in our gallery. We have a wonderful carriage house, display items in there of local artists.
I'm going to have to
and
interrupt you
artisans.
because now our time is up. Clearly, innovation is an idea whose time has come and has been around here for a long time in Simsbury. Mark your calendar for the library's Innovation Fair and launch of their 3D printer on April 26th. And in the meantime, thanks to everyone here at SCTV, the staff as well as the volunteers, for getting the show on the air. And of course, thanks to my wonderful guests. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming in and
Thank
being
you.
so interesting. And finally, thank you for joining us. If you missed any portion of the show, you can find it on our website at simsburytv.org. I'm Dominique Avery. See you next time for the Talk of Simsbury.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.